When does something you do all the time become a habit, a new habit? How often do you have to do it? How long do you have to do it before it becomes routine, ordinary? You don't even think about it. It just happens in your life.
This kind of work pays a lot of money.
It's boring.
And make it fun.
Well, today, habit is the new black in the area of personal development and self-care and well-being, where we're learning to practice things on a daily basis. Not huge life-changing things, but the small incremental things, the doable things that just about anybody can do once you choose them. Now, habits that you choose are, remember, things that you choose, and they're not things that are just chosen for us. A lot of the failure that we have in adding new things to our life is that we look at some big and impressive thing, we watch a YouTube video and somebody dramatically changes their life and becomes a millionaire in months, and we pick their habits rather than adding our own. I mean, think about the things that are advertised. Like there's that military veteran who says, make your bed every day, because at least every day you start with something specific and concrete. You've started your day with an accomplishment. Or maybe it's drinking your body weight in ounces of water every year. You know, we are probably the best hydrated generation in the history of generations. Yeah, because we drink so much water.
This is so boring!
You know, whether it's James Clear's Atomic Habits and the Rule of the 1%, a personal favorite of mine, or whether it's the revived interest in Marcus Arillus and Stoicism and the kind of self-discipline in life that others don't make you feel things, you're in control of your own life, and you need to let things go. Yeah, all of that, whatever it is, there's a new emphasis on personal habits. So let's look at what it takes to actually add good habits, what it means and why we fail when we try to subtract habits, and figure out the kind of habits that you want to choose to add to your life. And here's the promise of adding habits, and that is it helps us increase our capacity to do good things and the things that we want to do, so that we actually have a sense of agency or control over our lives. We control the things we can control. Remember that Stoicism stuff. But the idea is that we increase our capacity for doing those things. Yep, that is having the ability to do more when a year ago or a month ago or a day ago we didn't think we had the ability to do it. Giving ourselves the opportunity of actually trying and expanding our capacity, that's the benefit or the promise of adding habits.
Would you do something with me, Lloyd? It's an exercise I like to do sometimes.
So let's take a look at the details, what kind of habits, what's involved, and I'll also give you an example of a habit I added almost 5 years ago that's become a daily experience, a daily routine for me that I hardly ever think of. In fact, I look forward to it. I don't just do it ignorantly or not thinking about it. So stick around to the end and I'll tell you a really cool story of almost a 5-year-old habit that benefits me in multiple ways. Hi, I'm James Callahan, and this is the Do-Over Show, where we find any way possible of adding to our life and adding to our capacity so that we can be more successful when we try it a second or at least a third time. That is, when we have a do-over. And let me dive right into the deep end. I mentioned it before, maybe you didn't catch it, but it's this. I am a believer in adding rather than subtracting from our life. Yep, instead of just making a list of to-don't do things, I add just a to-do list. That is things I'm going to do. And by doing that, the goal is not just to eliminate bad habits, but is to rather put good habits at work in my life so that basically I crowd out or I basically run out the clock on bad habits every single day. So instead of making a list and obsessing about it, a list of things that I'm going to stop doing, by the way, that's part of a confessional culture that maybe you learn from your religion, maybe you learn from your family, but the idea is when we make a list of negative things and then we obsess about that list of negative things, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure, and that is we end up obsessing about the very things that we want to eliminate. We put them front and center. They become more and more important even than they were that prompted them to get us to say, hey, I don't want to do that anymore. It's actually counterproductive. And that's where the first experience of what a habit is and how we take to habits helps us understand that we don't make a list of things that we simply want to eliminate. We've got to replace things, we've got to do things in our life that will push out and replace those bad habits, but that we're able to concentrate on the things we want to do instead.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Now, this different approach to adding rather than subtracting, I use in my personal and professional life, not just with habits myself, but also in my creative work, marketing and communications, and my teaching and my writing and my research. That is, instead of taking away from things, let's say I'm managing a social media program and I post 3 times a day, and I may not like the success or I may not like the engagement. So the tendency we have is, well, I'm just going to pull those things because they're not working. Instead, I leave them there and I continue to schedule them and repurpose them. And then I expend my energy, not on taking away, but on adding and on trying new things so that I will take the risk of adding to. And that means that it influences my ability to function professionally and personally. That is, I've added things rather than just taking them away. So I create, I build, I add, I repurpose, but I never simply delete or subtract things. Now, it's easy when you're doing social media management, for example, just delete, delete, delete. But when it comes to our own life and the habits that build things that don't work, you don't get a delete button on life. Instead, we've got to find a way, a creative way, in order to build a life of good habits that we actually want in our life. Okay, now for a short list of habits and ideas and how people think about them, how behavioral psychologists and philosophers have talked about the role of habits in our life. Just some ideas to throw out there to give a try. Habits are not big, life-changing things. They're those small, incremental things that don't have an immediate ROI in our life. And that's why habits are so doable compared to, say, life and goals. And that's one of the big distinctions, and that is habits are not the same thing as goals. You may have a goal, I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to run a marathon tomorrow, or I'm going to lose 100 pounds or 50 pounds or 20 pounds. Whatever it is, those are goals, but habits have to do with all the different incremental things, the small things, and many of them may contribute to reaching goals, but they don't necessarily have an immediate return on investment. They're simply an addition to our life that we know will build productivity, will build something positive in our life that will help us maybe reach those bigger than life kind of goals that we often set for ourselves.
We're not going to do better next year.
Why not?
You know, the history of the word habit used to mean, for example, 13th century just meant clothing, and it became the idea of like, well, you get up, you get dressed. It's just what you wear, you clothe yourself. So it has to be with this ordinary, sort of thoughtless thing, not at the first, but from that time on. Remember granimals? I know, you didn't know what to wear. Oh, by the way, one of the things that some people do, and that is they adopt a uniform, that is they wear a certain limited amount of clothes, whether it's Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs with his turtlenecks and jeans and his New Balance, whatever it is. Imagine the time and energy and money you would save if you adopted a uniform. That is just a basic set of clothing that you're going to wear every single day. So you don't have to decide. You don't have to choose. You don't have to update your wardrobe. You just replace items if they get too worn. That means that you have all that time and energy and money because you've adopted a habit of wearing the same clothes. Now, maybe your ego won't allow you to adopt a uniform. Now, I remember when my kids were in school, they were a language academy in Chicago, and they had a uniform every day. Oh my goodness, it saved time and money every single day that we had no choice. And there was no personality or flair, and there was no wasted time or energy or money associated with it. Uniforms are beautiful things that we try to escape, and then maybe we figure out maybe it wasn't so bad after all. So habits are those repeated behaviors which become so ordinary that we sometimes just do them unconsciously. Now, the other thing is studying the history of habits and how habits form our lives. There's a behavioral psychologist who did a study, multi-year study, and offered that up to about 43%, not 44, not 42, but about 43% of all the things we do every day are habits or are habitual. We just do them because it's that time of day or we're associated with that. See, we build habits into our life in order to make life livable so that we don't have to decide from every moment to every moment, what am I going to do, what am I going to do, what am I going to do? Some of us have that, we're stigmatized by the idea, and our lives literally just seize up when we can't make a decision, where indecisiveness becomes so all-consuming. It's called decision fatigue, and a lot of us suffer from it. We're not even aware of it. Or we say, what am I going to do now? Should I do this or should I do that? In fact, there's a behavioral trick that people carry around a coin and they flip it, just binary, heads or tails, and they just live by the flip of a coin. Can't be a good way to live. So habits build in those routines so that we can actually function and accomplish something in our life. So All right, let's get to the details. So let's figure it out. What are the kind of habits that you might want to add? I'll give you some that I've added that can give your life a better structure and a new direction so that you have good habits and you get to crowd out the ones you're not too fond of. Okay, you may not like it when you're scrolling through TikTok for an hour and that meme or Dora pops up and says, hey, stop, wait a minute, you've been doing this. Think about doing something else for a little bit. Yeah, but not doing that doesn't mean that you'll start doing something good. And that's where, again, the addition rather than subtraction becomes so important. It's called running out the clock on our day. That is, when we start to do other things, we have less time to do the less desirable things. So part of adding, the idea of adding rather than subtracting, is that we learn the habit of running out the clock on our day, where we just run out of time and therefore we don't have the chance to do the things that we're trying to do less of. So some of the good things that you can add, it could be an exercise routine, start small. It can be an eating routine, add something to it. Again, adding rather than subtracting, that is, you can start to do things, maybe it's reading every day, maybe it's part of a discipline, that's something that will benefit you. Benefit us, though, not in the sense that it has a monetary reward right away. So it might not be just adding a new job to make more money, although that's one thing you can do. But it might be something that you add that doesn't have an immediate ROI. And those are the things that are really confounding for some of us. We're like, well, I don't see an upside. I don't see the benefit to do this. Well, the benefit to add something is that you crowd out something else because you run out the clock. Good. But the other benefit is that it contributes in long-term ability and increased capacity. That's the key to a more productive life. We've only got 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 a year. So how are we going to live a more productive life, a life that we actually have some sense of agency or control of? And that's where it comes to this story that I promised you. So almost 5 years ago, I built a basic website on WordPress, Words and Poetry by James Callahan. And it was going to be an outlet where I was going to post things just to put them out there that I was writing, poetry, prose, some short stories, non-fiction stuff. So I decided I'm going to do this. Now, I posted one day and I posted the next day. Wasn't thinking I was going to do something for the next 5 years. I posted a third day and then I got a notification from WordPress saying, congratulations, you're on a streak, 3 consecutive days. Really? 3 consecutive days? I'm on a streak. I didn't know I was on a streak. I'm on a streak. Now, I had a couple dozen poems and stories that I had written, and I was always insecure about sharing them. If you've ever tried to write something creatively, you know that rarely does it see the light of day. Rarely do we put it out there, and it's all because of our ego. So I shifted to the idea that done is better than perfect. And I decided, all right, I'm going to start to do something. I'm going to start to post every day. Now, that meant I went to the website every day, uploaded things. I tried to make them look nice. And then I learned about scheduling. And yes, it's just a built-in feature of so many things that you can schedule. We can do it on social media. But on this WordPress site, I learned I could schedule out. I could schedule out as long as I wanted to, basically. So I started to schedule. And then it went to 3 months and 6 months. And yeah, I started posting every day. Now, I had the battery of material, and some of it was okay. But I put it out there and started to get some feedback. And then I would take something that I posted a month ago, got some feedback, thought about it, and I said, I'm going to rewrite this part, and then I'm going to repost it. Yeah, same thing essentially, but reworked, edited, and reposted. And as I was doing that, I started to build out 30, 60, 90 days of scheduling so that I actually had time where I could write, and I wasn't under a pressure of I have to publish this today. And I got in the habit of writing as an ordinary part. Some days I wrote 5 things, some days I wrote 1 thing or none. But I started to schedule this out. I've got over 1,630 posts consecutively on my WordPress site. Am I going to make money from this? No. I'm going to put together a chapbook. I'm going to be a published poem. I'm going to do a poetry reading. I would love to, but no, it's not happening. And I don't do it for that purpose. I do it to increase my writing discipline. And it helps me in all the ways that my writing, and writing is an important part of my life as a teacher, as a communicator, in marketing, copywriting, so that learning how to write better, more directly for an audience, for example, is a discipline. And it takes effort. And the more I do it, the easier it becomes. And the better at it I get. So I use this WordPress site, my 1,630 plus consecutive days, as a way of building my capacity personally and professionally. And it's a habit. It's a habit that's doable. Now, when you think, am I going to write 1,630 plus days in a row? No. You figure out, I'm going to write 1, and then 2, and then 3. And that's how a habit becomes a habit. So I'm going to put it to you. What small thing are you going to start? Not stop, but start. What small thing are you able to start just to give it a try and to see the effort, the time, and maybe the benefit it is to you personally? And if you've got something that you say, I've got to stop this in my life, well, then the best route to do it is not to deprogram yourself, because all that's going to do is reinforce the bad habit, but rather find good habits to put in the place, to crowd out or run the clock out on the things you don't want to do. So leave it below in the comments and tell everybody, I'm going to try this, or what have I tried? I tried this and it didn't work. I tried this and it's still working. I tried this and it's harder than I thought. I tried this and it's easier than I thought. Share with us, because we all need to learn and get ideas for those habits that we can change, the small, good decisions that can make our lives better. Hey, and thanks for being part of the Do-Over Show. I really appreciate it. And please, could you tap the like button? Because it really helps. And while you're down there, consider subscribing and ringing the notifications bell so you don't miss the next episode. I'm so glad you found me, and I found you. Thanks.